Hello, everyone. Good morning. I want to also, I don't know if you saw Jacob in the video. He's the guy with the black mustache. He's not here. He just had a baby 2 weeks ago, so congratulations to him. He asked me to come and give this keynote, and then he doesn't show up. Apparently, his priorities are elsewhere. Anyway, welcome to the NDC. Welcome to The Machine. Now, how many of you are Pink Floyd fans? Yeah. Okay. So this has got nothing to do with Pink Floyd. But if you are a Pink Floyd fan like me, this was also a track from their album Wish You Were Here back in 1975, which was 2 years after I was born. And, oh God, I'm old. Anyway, and we'll talk about that a little bit, and it has, what exactly is The Machine? But I want to start with something else, which actually also references a song by Roger Waters, Amusing Ourselves to Death. Now, that's not about Roger Waters, that's about a gentleman called Neil Postman. Any of you heard of this one? So he wrote a book back in 1985, and he was talking about how initially with the telegram, and then with the radio, and then with TV, we started to get a whole bunch of information. We started to get information about things that weren't really impacting directly our lives. And this was enabled further and further as we came along. And essentially what was happening is that things that were relevant were getting lost in irrelevance because there was so much information that was coming. You know, back in the old days, like things that wouldn't impact me today, I was hearing about, right? Like a kangaroo escaped from the zoo in Sydney. Like, that was front page news. Like, not that it would impact me, but anyway. And of course, information needed to be entertaining, especially promoted with this idea of TV, right? Because it was this amazing thing that gave you visual arts, and people not only had to inform you, but they had to entertain you. It wasn't like the radio where people were just talking. This was like entertainment, engagement. You know, it was kind of like acting in a sense. Well, it was acting. And what he said about the television, he said that it's altering the meaning of being informed by creating a species of information that might properly be called disinformation. Disinformation does not mean false information. It means misleading information, misplaced, irrelevant, fragmented, or superficial information, information that creates the illusion of knowing something, but which in fact leads one away from knowing. Now, this was talking about back in the days of TV, right? There was another book also. Anybody read this book, A Brave New World? This was written by Aldous Huxley in 1931. And in it, he was describing this futuristic dystopia where we had like a controlled population with artificial procreation, we had psychological manipulation, we had a continuous use of substances for entertainment back in 1931, right? And in relation to amusing ourselves to death, and what Neil Postman was saying, and this is like the second thing that I'll probably read here, is that he said, what Orwell feared were those who would ban books. What Huxley feared was that there would be no reason to ban a book, for there would be no one who wanted to read one. What Orwell feared were those that would deprive us of information. Huxley feared those who would give us so much information that would be reduced to passivity and egoism. Orwell feared that the truth would be concealed from us. Huxley feared the truth would be drowned in a sea of irrelevance. Orwell feared we would become a captive culture. Huxley feared we would become a trivial culture, preoccupied with some equivalent of the feelies, the orgy-porgy, and the centrifugal bumble puppy, which I have no idea what it is. And what Neil was saying was that, in short, he feared, Orwell feared that what we hate will ruin us. Huxley feared what we love will ruin us. And his book was that maybe it was Huxley that was right and not Orwell, right? And all of this brought about by TV, right? We're glued to this TV, like Bruce Springsteen's 57 channels and nothing on, all just entertainment trying to get us attention. And of course, that's in the past, because then came along this amazing thing called the internet, right? And the internet, I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember what that was. That's a modem back in the old days. Yeah, okay, never mind. War game? No, never mind. So we came along with the internet, which obviously said, oh, well, take away the TV. Now we've got this amazing medium, which is fantastic. And amongst other things, the printed media said, well, We needed to survive in this era, right? So we start to promote our newspapers online. And we got to make them very engaging, and we've got to make them wonderful, and we've got to make these headlines so that people come and read our papers. But of course, they even saw a bigger opportunity, right? Because they're like, whoa, we can actually make money off of this, because no one's going to pay us to read the news. Like, those days of us printing something and people paying for it are gone. Now we've got to make money solely off advertising, which was great. Right? I mean, it worked. You know, you had a little corner there. You had some advertising in the corner. They called it revenue. We called it annoying banners, right? And I'm from Spain. And in Spain, when something comes out from a technological perspective or whatever, we want to take it to the next limit. We really want to push it, right? This is my newspaper in Spain. Somewhere in the middle there, you can see an actual headline, right? Everything else is essentially banners. My local paper takes it even further, and as I scroll, it scrolls the banners with me, right? So like that top one there is scrolling with me. So I don't get to see any of it. What I do, right, because I use an ad blocker, but if anyone else watches it, that's what they see. But it's great, right, because it was revenue, it was a way to get it. So what did we do? We installed ad blockers. Yeah? How many of you here use an ad blocker? Exactly. There you go. And what did the papers do? They're like, oh, no, listen, we've noticed that you've installed an ad blocker, and it's you know, we need to support ourselves. What did we do? We're like, no way. I'm going to fire up the Chrome tools, and I'm going to get rid of that div, because I'm going to read that bloody paper, and you're not going to stop me, right? And you spend like 6 hours trying to do this, you know. Wish you could pay for the paper, but pay for it, screw that shit. No. Anyway. So, and of course, many people took the route of native advertising. How many of you here have heard of the term native advertising? It's been around actually for a very, very long time. And the idea of native advertising is, instead of me putting like banners, I would kind of blend in, right? I would blend in somehow with the news, otherwise known as content marketing in the technical era, right? So, for example, you see here, this is The Guardian, and you can see a little section at the top there that shows you, like, you know, paid content. Now, I know this because I see this, right? Often it's a little bit more subtle, but there's always like a paid buy or a Outbrain or whatever in the corner somewhere. So it's like the disclaimer that this is an advertising. And you think, oh, what's the big deal, right? Well, I mean, you know, I want to read an article about how much do you know about vegan food, which sounds fantastic, right? And I start to read it, and it says, oh, you know, actually vegan food is really, really bad for you, and going vegan is wrong. And you're like, oh, this must be like really, you know, important. I maybe should no longer become a vegan. And then you, like, if you follow the links, you're like, oh, sponsored by someone that works at a company called Meats R Us. Yes? So, you know, it's a content that blends in, but then you don't know behind the scenes who's paying for this or what their intentions are. So a lot of newspapers now, if you notice, they've got this concept of native advertising. And of course, someone was made double check. Other people say, oh, no, this is facts, right? This is news. It's on the news website. That's it. It's just an article there, and it's that. But there was an even greater opportunity here, which was called targeted advertising, right? And allowing you to basically track people. You've all done it. You know, you've Googled, or you've gone to Amazon or whatever, and you've looked for a fridge, and then you've ended up buying that fridge. But then for the next 6 months, you know, the ads are following you saying, do you want a fridge, right? They kind of like target you in that sense. And it was allowing to track people, right? They called it personal experience, otherwise known as personal manipulation. Because back in the old days, you know, when you had a billboard, you had a TV, an advert of, like, say, whatever, a drink or whatever, it was blasting out to everyone, right? Whether you were the demographics they were targeting or not, it was blasting out. Now, with tracking and targeted advertising, it is finding a specific demographic and targeting those people. So it's specifically targeted at manipulating, in a sense, those people. Because at the end of the day, you know, advertising is essentially manipulation of emotions. But we said enough of that. It's over. Enough is enough, and out came GDPR, right? And what did we get with that? We got more pop-ups. A lot more pop-ups. It's also funny, people have come from the States and they're like, what's going wrong with the World Wide Web in Europe? Yeah, it's called GDPR. And you get interesting articles that talk about the importance of privacy by first displaying a pop-up saying how their privacy is important to you. Please accept all, and then we will track everything, right? Some people in outside of Europe, they're kind of like, oh, you know, to hell with the EU. We're not even going to serve the EU anymore, right? We're just going to stop serving Europe. And obviously this is even wrong because it's targeting European people, not where your location is. But that's what GDPR has given us, more pop-ups. And all of this, of course, is information for our attention, yearning for us to be able to read something that's entertaining, competing for our short, tiny little attention span. It's like, oh, I've only got 2 minutes to browse the web, and then how the hell did I end up looking at this YouTube video? Why am I even here? Oh my God, it's been 6 hours. That short attention span we all have, it's all yearning for it. Hopefully that we click on those ads. Now, of course, some of them are now moving towards a paid model, which is also interesting because you're kind of like now paying and get the advertising. And it depends on the paper. Like for example, The Guardian or many papers that kind of like say, support us, right? Please donate to support us to continue to provide you with independent news. You have other ones. The Telegraph actually started very interesting. Initially, it was like you can read 5 articles, and then it was now everything is premium, and you can only read 1 article that's free, and it's basically moved towards a paid model. Independent, for example, props up this banner that says, pay to help support us. I especially find this one interesting because if you scroll further down, there's another banner that comes up that says, support free-thinking journalism, right? So it's saying, essentially, either support us to get free-thinking journalism, or remove your ad blocker and get the adverts, which kind of makes you think, so what am I getting if I'm looking at the ads? Is it an added version of your journalism, or how does that exactly work? But anyway, more and more people are essentially moving towards this paid model. But you say, well, it doesn't matter. I mean, traditional media is essentially a thing of the past, right? I mean, that in nowadays, this whole idea of traditional newspapers and journalists and all of that, that's really a thing of the past. It's all about social media now, right? Because in fact, social media is feeding the media, right? How many times have you seen that something's happened and someone's tweeted something, or there's been like some video, and all of the media are like, oh, this is CBS 1047 station 259. Could we please use your video? And the person's like, yes. And then at some point, there's always like the Daily Mail. Could we use this? And everyone's badging on, no, don't let those bloody bastards use your video, right? We see this day in and day out on social media. People are tweeting information, and then journalists are picking up on this and using that as their source of media, right? But essentially, we've all of us become micro-journalists in a sense, right? That's one good thing that came out of micro services. It's given everyone essentially a voice. And what has it given us? Information overload, right? So before we had the TV, now we've got the internet, now we've got the media, now we've got social media, all of this data coming at us. And this normally comes in the shape of different formats, right? We have Twitter. Anyone heard of Twitter? Right. There's another one which starts with an F. Snapchat. I don't know if that's about disappearing messages. It's still around. I think it is still around. And Google+, which isn't. That was a very, very small group. In fact, they shut it down, and nobody was upset except my mother. And she calls me, and she's like, they're closing Google+. I'm like, yeah, and she's like, I'm on Google+. I'm like, but it's only you. Like, it's okay. No one's going to miss you, I mean, she bless my mother. She follows me on Twitter, and she hits like on these technical posts. And I'm like, you don't even know what that means, but anyway. So, but Google+, anyway, it was another good attempt. But we've created our walled gardens, right? We've essentially created this curated environment in which each of us are on all of these different platforms, where we follow like-minded people, right? Because we want to stick to our tribes. We block those we don't agree with. More and more I hear, oh, I've blocked this word. Oh, I've blocked that person. Oh, I've blocked him. Oh, I've blocked her. Oh, I've blocked this. I've blocked that. Not to alter our way of thought. And we essentially are in our own echo chambers inside our different walled gardens. And who's our keeper? Well, the platform is our keeper, right? They're our keeper here. So they create content that matters to us, right? How many times you've heard, just recently, Twitter, top tweets first. Based on what? Oh, no, here's your top tweets. Your home feed on Facebook. Here's the interesting news that matters to you. Said who? I did. How do you know? Well, we'll figure that out later. But here's what you need to see first, right? Things that you care more about first. All of this being pushed towards us. And we trust this keeper, right? And we help the keeper. We hit like. We like. Oh, I like this post. Like. The other day there was an article about how like is destroying the internet, and I said I agree. Someone's like, no. I don't use like when I like something. I'm like, what do you use it for? To bookmark something. Do you realize that the essential issue here that we're semantically not interpreting the word the same way? For some people it's like, for you it's just a bookmark. But that actually has an impact, because that's feeding many things. That's feeding people that think that because you like something, they're endorsing it. That's feeding the algorithms thinking you're liking something. We hit dislike. I especially like the dislike one and the way the world is going with the emotions. In like Discuss now provides you with a platform with a whole bunch of different emotions, which is fantastic, right? There's like, you write a blog post and there are emotions that you can add saying, I hate it, screw you, this is disgusting. And we've put that all into emojis, which is fantastic, right? We hit share. Share is brilliant. Like, it's so easy to just share. It's excellent. Awesome to get our content out there. And all of this, of course, is feeding those algorithms, right? And these algorithms, what are they focused on? They're focused on engaging people. They want you to be on their platform as much as possible. So they're focused on engaging. How do they do that? By targeting people and engaging them with different activities. But there's also things that you may see or may not see, or I may see and you may not see. And we don't often hear about that. Now, this one we did hear about, for instance. This was about a picture of Vietnam that was banned by Facebook. And it got picked up by a Norwegian magazine and said, this is ridiculous, why are you banning this? And Facebook came out and said, oh, sorry, it was a mistake, right? It's a mistake that I've been banning this type of pictures. And there's multiple examples of this. And at some point, they actually released their rules of censorship, so to speak, right? And in it, there was things like, remarks such as someone Trump should be deleted because as a head of state, he is in a protected category. But it can be permissible to say, to snap a bitch's neck, make sure to apply all your pressure to the middle of her throat, because they are not regarded as credible threats. It is videos of violent deaths, while disturbing, do not always have to be deleted because they can help awareness of issues such as mental illness. So there's a rule book, apparently somewhere, that someone is following and telling us what should and shouldn't be censored, for good and bad. And of course, we don't even think about the human side of this, right? Which is essentially censor shops in Philippines and many places in the world have become the new equivalent of sweatshops, where you have low-paid people being paid very low salaries to sit and censor information that might affect some others, such as us, right? Leading them to anxiety, to depression, to many things. Examples. There was literally nothing enjoyable about the job. You'd go into work at 9 a.m. every morning, turn on your computer, and watch someone have their head cut off. Every day, every minute, that's what you see. Heads being cut off. All that so that we can enjoy our little pictures of puppies and cats, right? Someone else is taking care of that. And eventually, algorithms will take care of that. But they might also censor the wrong things, right? So that also lead the question of, do I actually see everything? What is being censored that I don't know? What is not in my feed? What is things in my feed that may not be in other people's feed? But our feed, our bite-sized information that we can easily share. It's become so easy to share, right? Oh my God, I created this. This is the definitive proof that the Earth is flat. The article is mind-blowing. Now, this is stupid, right? Well, okay, so for some people it's not, but anyway. This is stupid, but there could be an article that's not so controversial. It might be a little bit controversial. What is the normal share flow in this case, right? The dissemination of information. It's, let's see, the person is someone I really trust, or generally trust. Yes, I follow them, I've trusted them. I skimmed the article. Yeah, I looked through it. There was like 6 paragraphs. It's okay, there were paragraphs in there. The message kind of aligns with my thoughts, confirmation bias. I'll share and maybe read it later in more detail. And we just hit share, just like that. What we generally don't do is say, okay, let me see. Let me see if it's fake or not. No. Let me read the article in detail and contrast it with other sources. No. Let me see the entire video of that short clip that highlights a specific point, maybe to fit the narrative. No. Let me put the voice snippet or quote into the bigger context. No. In fact, just the other day, there was a discussion, something about the web, and Brendan Eich had a tweet in there somewhere that says, I admit JavaScript was a mistake. I snapshotted that, and I said, there you go. Brendan Eich says the JavaScript was a mistake. So don't blame me when I say it as well. Right? Taking things out of context. Let me read the comments on that tweet post. Like, I will tweet something, and before retweeting it, actually let me look through the comments and see if there's anything fake or not. Just recently, there was a video of, there was a strong winds, or I don't know what it was, somewhere in the Philippines or wherever, and some guy that is, I don't know, one of these shows of Big Brother or what have you. He's got like 300,000 followers on Twitter, verified account, which means he's somebody, I guess. And he had tweeted this video of this airplane going like this, like a big 747 going like this, twirling, and then suddenly pictures of people rushing off the plane. And he's like, oh my God, that was amazing piloting. I'm like, you realize that, I mean, even if you're not familiar with the laws of aerodynamics, this is completely fake. And people are calling it out for him. And he actually believed that that was real. And he's like, okay, well, fine, it was fake. Okay, well, next time I'll check. But the problem is that that initial tweet gets like 600,000 shares. The correction gets 0. And people are like, oh my God, what amazing piloting. That's better than Captain Sully, you know? We don't even read those. In fact, by the way, my sampling is really, really bad, right? Like when I tweet a poll, I only get like 50 people answering. But hey, it's great for my narrative. And it says, you know, when you have something controversial, how many times do you actually contrast that information between retweeting? It kind of like, not everyone does. But you say, but I don't have time. I got to watch videos of cats. I can't do this all the time. No. Of course, we don't have time. What we can do is we can basically share and forget. And the web has made it so much easier for us to essentially do that. And we share things on many, many topics, right? We share things on companies and organizations. We share information about individuals. We share information about politics. I don't know if any of you have seen this, the 29 stages of a Twitter storm, right? It's, so essentially, a company does something wrong. Someone catches wind, makes the rounds, famous person makes a comment on it, like, oh my God, I can't believe you did this. Media notices it, picks it up, company forced to apologize, everyone forgets and moves on to tomorrow. Like, literally, that is what it's become. Every 24 hours, there is some Twitter storm going on the web around some topic. A lot of information. We don't have time to analyze everything. But you say, well, this is good. We'll show these bloody corporations, right? We will show with our wallet. We'll show with our voice. If they're doing something wrong, we'll call them out for it. And it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. It is good. But not everything is that simple. Not everything is. Because there are also the aspects of individuals. Now, how many of you remember this story? A lady called Justine Sacco. Now, Justine Sacco was a lady a few years ago, was working as a head of communications for a large corporation, and she was getting on a plane from Heathrow, said, I'm heading to South Africa. Hope I don't catch AIDS. Just kidding, I'm white, right? So she took off, 8 hours later landed. She was trending topic worldwide. To sum up the long story, she was ruined. Right? She was doxxed, she was kicked out of the job, she was smashed she was living for years and years and years on sofas of people, not being able to get a job, a whole bunch of things, right? And Wired magazine, I think the New York Post also interviewed her. And of course, you know, the only person that truly knows whether that was sarcasm or not is her. The only person that truly knows whether that's something you should even joke about or not, well, it's for her to decide. I'm not judging anything here. But my point is that everyone remembered that this woman made a mistake or whatever, and it was destroyed, and everyone forgot. But her life wasn't the same, right? Now I think I actually looked her up recently, and I think she's actually gone back to work for one of the subsidiaries of the original company, right? After like 4 or 5 years. But the point is here that when we have so much information and we're not able to contrast everything and we don't know the insights and we don't know everything, it becomes a little bit, we've got to start to take a little bit of caution here, because it's not just sharing something. Because what happens with all the stories that we haven't followed up on? What about all those things that happen to people that we haven't followed up on to see what's happened? But what has happened is that social media has basically made us judge, jury, and executioner. It's enabled us to do that. We judge things without having deep insight. We condemn people, everything. Very, very easily. And every retweet, every share, every whatever, every subtweeting, every quote, all of these things are contributing on this, right? So I don't know if you're familiar with the film 1984, but there was a segment which was called the 2 minutes of hate, where people would just go and hate for 2 minutes on something, right? The party was telling them to hate someone or something. It often feels like that's what social media has enabled, right? Just to hate for 2 minutes and then move on to something else. So, but there are also things that have much greater impact, right? There's things that can impact, yes, call out companies for bad behavior, call out people for bad behavior. All of these things are acceptable and they can drive us in a better direction in society. But there's also things that have bigger impact. There is violence, right? This idea of sharing things and rumors, etc., can lead to violence. On WhatsApp in India, several people, innocent people, were killed because rumors were incorrectly accusing certain people of doing something wrong. Right? That leads to violence. If you don't know about it, if you don't contrast and you just blindly share, it's just accumulating that. It's just adding to it. People set on fire because of rumors, etc. And then, of course, we know the politics of this, right? The politics. Now, a few years ago, this talk was actually based off of another talk which I did a few years ago, which was called Where's My Free Lunch? And back when Cambridge Analytica was a thing, I was talking about this thing that I had read regarding this company, the Cambridge Analytica. Nowadays, everybody knows. Is there anybody in the room that doesn't know what Cambridge Analytica is? And if you don't know, you'll probably see it shortly in a movie that's coming up about this other topic that's going on in the UK right now. I can't recall. But it does make you, it begs you. It's kind of like, so if we can target someone with a washing machine, like, why can't we target them for voting for something? It's like, whoa, I didn't think of that. Really? So instead of selling them a device, I can sell them an idea? Mind-blowing. Like, really, are we shocked that this happened? Are we, like, Cambridge Analytica is, what did they do? What did they do? It's like, oh, okay. And if we can target certain segments of society based on specific characteristics, well, you're saying that we can target specific groups? Yes. In fact, if you do Facebook posts, it can say, oh, gender, ethnicity. What do you want to target? There you go. Now you group your manipulative messages towards certain groups of society based on gender, race, social status, what have you. Anybody heard of dark posts? Dark posts is the most amazing thing you can use in advertising, right? There's multiple articles about dark posts. Dark posts is essentially the idea that they don't show up as your company, they don't show up in your feed or your follower stream. They appear and disappear at random times when you want it in someone's feed, right? They avoid your content to look spammy. They're great, right? Because they appear at times specific groups. They allow you to micro-target specific groups. They can say, oh, target this group and show them this post, whereas this other group, show them that post. In principle, it's innocent, right? I'm not going to target things about, IntelliJ IDEA that I've written in English to a group of people in China because, amongst other things, maybe they prefer the Chinese version, right? In principle, it could look innocent. But the reality is that this use for the wrong reasons, such as politics, leads to some of the issues that we see. They allow you, though, to do better A/B testing, even with politics, right? And it's invented by Facebook, available on all platforms now. You can do it on all platforms. It's all great. It's wonderful, right? And with the micro-targeting, what we're doing is profiling voters based on social media and other data, creating tribes. And what do the tribes do? What do individuals do? They do word-of-mouth marketing, right? Have a message to send them, and they do word-of-mouth marketing. Because what? What works? Word-of-mouth marketing. If I tell you to use IntelliJ, it's not going to be the same because I'm from JetBrains versus if someone else says to you, use IntelliJ. You're going to believe them better, right? Word-of-mouth marketing. It works. It works for selling products. It works for anything you want. There's actually a very good talk from this lady called Zenap Tufekci. I don't know if I said that right, but we're building a dystopia just to make people click on ads. I recommend you watch that. But this is what it's essentially led to. And of course, we've heard about Cambridge Analytica because of Brexit, because of elections in the UK, in the US, whatever. But this isn't a new idea. This was actually done before. It was done during the Obama administration. It was done during the Clintons. To a different extent, maybe what data they were getting, what data they were not getting. But the idea was there, and it's been used. To greater or less success, it's been used. So you're like, can anything good come from all of this, right? Because like so far, everything I've shown you is bad. Just to not, spoiler alert, everything else I'm going to show you is also bad, right? This isn't a very positive talk, so don't get your hopes up. So actually something recently good did come from it. There was a lady, I don't know if you heard about this, there was a lady that wanted to be deported to Saudi Arabia. Back, she managed to get asylum from the Canadian government, I believe. And it was because she made a lot of noise. So in essence, it's not the question that maybe social media is bad or whatever. In essence, it's what we are sharing and how we're sharing it and the rules by which we're sharing or allowing. How many of you remember the Arab Spring? Right. How many of you remember the green avatar for Iran? No? Many years ago, I was born in Iran, so this is dear to my heart, I guess. Many years ago, there was this kind of like a thing to go, there was a meme on, I won't call it a meme, there was a movement on Twitter to put your avatar green, shade it green to show support for the uprising of some people in Iran against the government, right? And people were doing this. Everyone, like you looked at your Twitter stream, everything was green. Everything was green. And you were like, I'm helping support these people, right? It's a good cause, right? I mean, if you're against, the current regime in Iran, if you feel that it's oppressive, if you feel morally against something and you feel morally towards a cause, you could support that cause. You can show your support. But let's for a moment step back and think about the impact that this may have, and let's talk hypothetically. This may have happened, this may have not happened. There's some kid, some woman, some man, someone in Iran that is fed up with the regime. And when I say Iran, I can say anything, any country, whatever. They're fed up. And they see an outpour of support. And they see an outpour of support from people. And they're thinking to themselves, all of these people are supporting me. Everyone is supporting me. I should do something about it. I shouldn't just sit back. Maybe this is the time for me to stand up. They're inspiring me to stand up. And I'll go and I'll stand up and I'll go and fight in the street, and maybe they get shot and killed. Or maybe they get imprisoned. Right? For us, what was it? A green avatar. For them, it was inspiring them. But that inspiration, did we actually think about all of the possible consequences that our inspiration may lead to? Did we think about that? Neil Postman in his book talks about the passive observer, in a sense, right? That I don't give a crap that there is a kangaroo that is lost in a zoo in Sydney. It's entertaining. It's not going to impact my life. But we have gone from being passive observers to essentially armchair participants. We have now a power and a voice to participate in things, but not often do we actually look at all the potential outcomes and all of the consequences of our participation. But okay, fair enough. Forget it. It's not about politics. I really do want to share cats. It's about friends and family. That's what I have. I just like to take selfies of pics and food, and I like to just browse through my friends' timelines and see what they're up to. It helps me stay connected with friends and family. I hear that all the time regarding Facebook. to prove to you, I don't have a Facebook account, I deleted it like 6 years ago, but to prove to you I had something like, I don't know, like 800 or 900 friends on Facebook. In real life, I've got like 1, okay? I was the least liked kid at school. So, but what about the other impacts of this, the psychological impacts of all of this activity, of all of this trying to have a presence, trying to always make that presence better, right? We're always kind of like this scroll and refresh. I post a pic, and I'm like, oh, why isn't it getting enough likes? Well, is it this retweet? Why didn't this retweet go out enough? Is it something I said? Didn't they like it? Did I disagree with someone? Oh, what's going to happen if someone misinterprets it or misquotes me? This is all anxiety that is affecting a lot of people, right? And then, of course, you're scrolling through and like, oh, look, that person just bought a wonderful car. Oh, that person just bought a wonderful house. Yeah, we started in the same university. How come they get to go where they are and I'm not, right? Whatever, human nature. Different people are different, right? Some are envious, some are not. But this is all contributing negatively. And there are multiple studies that talk about how depression is linked to social media, right? There's multiple of them. I mean, I've shown you a bunch of them. And I know, unfortunately, there was a recent incident here in the UK, again, also about a girl that was committed suicide, which was related somewhat to Instagram and her activity there. And this goes on, right? Toxicity. Studies have found that it's one of the most toxic places for women, Twitter. And all of this happens, right? So it's not just about the politics. It's not just about calling out companies. And it's not just about social media. Because we are sharing so much data. And to be clear, like, this isn't a rant about social media or platforms. It's about the data and the misinformation and the amount of information. You want to train? There's an app for that. You want to jog? There's an app for that. You want to see how much calories you've eaten? There's an app for that. How much wine you've drunk? There's an app for that. How much you've slept? There's an app for that. How much you work? There's an app for that. It's called Focus, or multiple ones. Back in the old days, we used to call this discipline. What you read, there's an app for that. And guess what? What you watch, there's an app for that. And where you go, there's an app for that. Anything you could potentially think of, there's an app for, right? And then, of course, you've got the best app of all, which is your assistants. Call it Alexa, Google, Siri, Cortana, Bixby, AI. They're all there, right? They're all there. You know, if someone had said to you 5 years ago, hey, can I put a video camera and microphone in your house and record everything you say and do? You're like, what, are you stupid? Are you saying that if I buy one Siri, I get another one free? Amazing, I can have this in every room? Wow, so cool. And I got a big deal, so I get some targeted ads, right? Famously quoted by Bruce Schneier, right? Surveillance is the business model of the internet. We build systems that spy on people in exchange for services. Corporations call it marketing. Like, oh, my data is meaningless. It is free, right? And I get this for free. I get all of these apps for free, and I just, give my data. It's okay. My data is meaningless. In fact, we're taking this to the real world. There's a coffee shop now in Boston that says, hey, you don't even have to pay for your latte. Just give me your data. Like, go in there, give me some data, get a latte. But why free? Mirko recently had a tweet. You see, he does get a lot of votes. He got like 6,000. He's like, if Google would start charging money for Google search, would you pay for it? Like, get out of here. Pay for Google search? Get out. I should get it free, right? So you all know this quote. I tracked it down apparently to a gentleman called Andrew Lewis. If you're not paying for it, you're not the customer. You're the product being sold. Right? We've heard this multiple times. I got a new quote for you. It's from me. It doesn't matter anymore. Whether you're paying or not, you're still the product, right? You're still paying for your devices. You're still paying for those apps, and you're still the product. Yeah? It's like now it's not about oil, it's about data, right? It's big data. And the best part of it is, while oil will run out, data probably won't. Well, yeah, I mean, oil will run out, just in case someone thinks oil won't run out. It will. And of course, this is getting worse, also known as the Internet of Things, right? It's fantastic. Like, I love this headline. LG threatens to put Wi-Fi in every appliance it introduces in 2017. It threatens. It's like, it's fantastic. Now my fridge is talking to Amazon. I don't even have to do the shopping. It's like, he's lacking some milk. Okay, I'll get him some milk. Oh, buy some soya as well, because he's been drinking a little bit of that. I don't even need to intervene. I get my fridge to talk to Amazon or whatever directly. It's fantastic, right? LG now works with Amazon and Google Assistant. It's like, in the morning, I toast bread for my kids. My toaster's going to come and say, no, you're going to have to transfer some Bitcoin for me to release this toaster to you, right? Because, you know, as famously, Oleg once says, the S in IoT stands for security. So, but this is ridiculous. Like, you got that, did you? Okay. It's like, how to turn off smart TV snooping features. Like, literally, you have to go into your TV and turn off the snooping features. It's like, I want to have a private conversation with my wife. I'm like, shh, let's get out. The TV's listening. Right? It's no longer the kids are present. No, it's the TV's present. Right? Let's go out in the garden. Right? But you've got the barbecue, the new barbecue with the Wi-Fi. Oh, shit. It's like, OK, barbecue, light up. And all this time, of course, we've been focusing on Internet of Things, forgetting that we're actually the Internet of People. Like, we, as individuals, are generating so much data through the apps and through the assistants and all of this that is essentially the Internet of People. Of course, some people want to take this to the next level. And they, like in Sweden, thousands of Swedes are inserting microchips under their skin to facilitate payment. If this gets implemented, what they should actually do is like have a hand that says like a high five, and then you go to the shop and you just like high five, right? Yeah? And today is for payments. Tomorrow, I've actually got an idea for a startup for you. Here's what you do. We all get the microchips implanted. And then when you shake hands, there's a contacts exchange, right? You get each other's emails. That would work. That's a startup idea for you. We're moving towards this. Even more data is being generated. So essentially, we've sacrificed all of our privacy for convenience. It's just so easy to do a handshake and pay, right? I don't have to get the phone out and like get the credit card out. Nah, just tap my little phone and pay with that. What questions we don't generally ask ourselves is, you know, like, do they store my data? Like, do they send it anywhere? How can they use my data? Is it safe? Terms of what? Like, what? What do you want me to read? Nah. This was an experiment by F-Secure, which ran in London, giving free Wi-Fi in exchange for your firstborn. 6 people signed up. They discontinued it after the first 6 that signed up. They're like, yeah, maybe we'll get into legal problems here. Some people don't read the terms of service. Who reads the terms of service here? Especially every time you go to Google and it's like, oh, the Android store. It's like, oh, 78 apps updated. Would you like to update? Yeah, sure. Do you want to read through the terms of service of all 78? Nah. And every time they might change that a little bit to get you more, get less data from you. Behind at-home DNA testing companies sharing genetic data with third parties. Oh, it was in the terms of service. You know, you just didn't read it. It's like, why would we want to put together an amazing database of everyone's DNAs? That's a good idea if they hack it. No one's going to hack it. Troy, no one hacks things, do they, Troy? Roombas have been busy mapping our homes, and now that data could be shared, right? I use an application called Untapped. It's about beers. So it's nice, right? The idea is that every time I drink a beer, I check in my beer so that sometime I could go back and see how I like that beer before I order it again, which never happens, but anyway, it's a good idea. And so I essentially end up competing for badges, which I'll never win anyway, because Jimmy Bogart has got all the badges there are. But anyway, so I'm like, OK, I've got a circle of friends that will share the beers that I drink with me. And the other day, I bought this beer. I checked it in. It was horrible. I'm like, I go to Google. I'm like, who makes this? What does Google turn up this page? I'm like, wait a minute. Why does it say I drank that beer? I didn't say that I can share this publicly. Oh, no, there was a default option that says your profile is public, right? That one day, some insurance company is going to start data mining this and say, oh, we're not giving him insurance anymore. Drinks too much. Jimmy, this is for you. Do we take time to configure all of these options? So the other day, again, I logged into LinkedIn. And it says, Hadi, you're the boss of your account. And I'm like, finally, I'm the boss of something. And I said, OK, let me try and configure this. Privacy. OK. How others see your profile and network information. OK, that was one page. Privacy, how others see your LinkedIn activity. Okay, next page. How LinkedIn uses your data. Next page. Job-seeking preferences, blocking and hiding. Like, do you seriously think that I have time to go through 4 pages of privacy settings to configure it for you to tell me what I can and cannot do or allow you to do with my data? And I'm not even talking about the ads. The ads had its own column of settings, right? Of course, but it's legal under GDPR. We're explicitly telling you what you can and cannot do. Oh, okay, thank you. Thanks for that. And when it's not optional, right? And when you're not told about it, multiple cases. Bose headphones spying on listeners, sending it to a data mining site that they could send it anywhere, right? The app, oh, get the best experience out of Bose. Oh, and I'll listen to everything you're listening to. You know, vibrator maker to pay millions over claims that secretly tracked users. AccuWeather caught sending user location data even when location sharing is off. Over 500 Android apps spying on over 100 million users. Uber, taking screenshots when they shouldn't. Runkeeper, tracking you when they shouldn't. It's all there. And then, of course, it's when software has issues. Twitter, oh, yeah, sorry about that. A whole bunch of direct messages, private messages were actually public. We found the bug. Facebook, you know, oh, yeah, we had an issue, it defaulted to public, so a whole bunch of information is public. This was a recent one just a couple of days ago. You can basically listen to any conversation using the FaceTime on an iPhone without even having for the person to pick it up. And then, of course, it's what else? What if someone else accesses that data? You know, it's like every freaking day I get an email from Have I Been Pawned? Thanks, Troy. It's like, you should just take down that website and just put a big yes. You're all screwed, right? Literally, you are pawned. Every freaking day you're going to get pawned around something, right? Equifax, giving out credit card billing information, all of it. And we don't think about this. I mean, we can't. We're going to go paranoid, right? But what happens if one day one of these people use some of this data against you? And there are cases. Some of them hit the media, some of them don't, where people are being doxxed, their lives are being destroyed because someone wants vengeance. I came across a website recently which was called Family Tree Now. And I went to it, and it's basically going to track your heritage across your family tree. This is really big in the US. And it actually, I'm going to say fortunately, it only works in the US. Because there was a sister site to it, which was called True People Search. And it worked in the US. So I typed in a name of my colleague that lives in the US. Guess what it turned up? His home address, his previous address, all of his recent telephone numbers, his possible relatives. All of this information online accessible to anyone. Now, I don't know about you, but in Spain, there are companies that actually ask those questions as security questions. I call my phone company, and I'm like, I want to change my bank account details. They're like, yeah, give me your current address. Here it is. What's your telephone number? Here. OK, Mr. Hariri, what's the new account number? Right? So easy to access this information. And you're like, yeah, but this is all public record. Sure, but no one said put it on the damn internet. Well, there you go. But you say, oh, I've got nothing to hide, right? I really don't have anything to hide. I'm a straight person. I don't, like, in terms of legal, I don't have anything to do. I've not done anything wrong, anything illegal. It's all good. Not that I'm a fan of Edward Snowden, but he did say that arguing that you don't care about the right to privacy because you have nothing to hide is no different than saying you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say. And that's pretty accurate. Right? All of us have something to hide. All of us have said things about colleagues, co-workers, bosses, spouses, husbands, whatever that we have, or we prefer for it not to be public. That is what makes us humans. That is what makes us individuals, our privacy. But you're like, oh, we're not in an Orwellian society. Now, again, I'm sure that everyone's heard of 1984, which was by George Orwell, written in 1949. Censorship talks about a society of censorship, about control, about Big Brother, right? Fortunately, we don't have any of that, right? PRISM, that's a thing of the past. Anyone remember PRISM here? No. It's now gone the other direction. Now the FBI is actually collaborating with companies to give them real-time information. It's fantastic. You can check up everything about your employees at any time. But again, you don't even need this infrastructure. You don't even need the access to private data anymore, right? All of it is on social media. Back, if you've ever filled out an ESTA form, anyone? Yeah, to go to the US? Back in the old days, it was a green card on the plane. Then they said, we're going to make it more efficient and charge you $20 for it. So an ESTA form, back in I think it was like the second term of the Obama administration, they started to introduce social media fields. right? GitHub, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm like, are you seriously going to judge me based on my GitHub? Okay, I swear, they forced me to use JavaScript. It wasn't my choice, right? But that shouldn't allow me to not enter your country. Like, I don't even need this information to be private anymore. China. How many of you heard of the citizen social credit score system in China? That's there. I've been. It's there, right? This lady was on the Tianjin to Beijing train. The announcement said, breaking the rules will impact your credit score. Now think about that. Just think about that for a second. That's not Black Mirror. Think about that, okay? And China doubles down on real name. So you have to register with your real authenticity, right? So it's all there. And in fact, I actually raised the point here about, do you think that a lot of the hate and the vitriol that goes on in the internet is to do with the fact that we're anonymous? That was divided. And with anonymous here, a key point is not about whether you use your real name or not. It's that you are anonymous to someone way over across the world. You don't care about them, they don't care about you. And yet online, you can show a lot of hate towards that person. So ZTE is helping build the fatherland card for Venezuela that gives them kind of like the new age coupon, food stamps, etc., right? And hey, we can track them. When I was in Singapore a few months back, I was talking to a colleague of mine, and he was wearing a device for tracking. And I said, oh, that's not a Fitbit. And he's like, no, I got this free. I said, oh, from where? He says, the Singaporean government. I'm like, really? What for? It's like, well, there's this program where you basically get achievements if you do good exercise, right? And then those achievements can be turned into discounts, whatever, for groceries. So at every single moment in time, now the government knows where you are. But hey, but it's good. You get food coupons, right? And legislation is slowly creeping in, right? I mean, in the UK, you heard about I think it was Amanda and Rudd or someone that was talking about, oh, you can't have encryption. Encryption is evil. Australia said, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to insert the back doors there and allow, why do we even need encryption? There's similar regulations being passed in many countries, in Holland, etc. So it's slowly creeping in. In fact, in Spain, they've just passed a new legislation that says that the government can collect data, not the government, sorry, the political parties are allowed to collect and profile your social media information to then target you. So essentially, what everyone's saying is wrong with what happened with Cambridge Analytica, the Spanish government's like, yeah, we're going to pass a law to allow that, right? I told you, we always take innovation to the next level. And reports are showing less and less freedom on the internet. By the way, everything I put, there's always a source so you can go and look at it. And of course, there are companies that are caving in, right? I mean, you go to China now, the great big firewall of China, Bing works in China. There was a show, a comedian the other day on Netflix that made the rounds that, oh, Netflix, Saudi Arabia government was angry with Netflix because this was insulting I don't know who, so they censored that there, just complying with the rules. Apple in China. So if we go back to when we started and we're asked how we're doing, well, let's take a look. Censorship is pretty much there. Control is there. Big Brother is there. Information is entertainment. Amusing ourselves to death is there. Relevance is lost in irrelevance. It's there. Psychological manipulation is there. Shallow forms of entertainment is there. So unfortunately, Neil Postman was wrong. Both Huxley and Orwell were right. Yeah? Coming back to welcome to the machine, he says, welcome, my son, welcome to the machine. Where have you been? It's all right. We know where you've been. Now, Roger Waters was supposedly referring to the music industry, but hey, this is society right now. What have you dreamed? It's all right. We told you what to dream. And now AI wants to play too with big data, right? Again, in China, there is a camera literally everywhere. Everywhere you can look, there are multiple cameras with facial recognition. There was a very good example of this. I think it was by the small documentary on the BBC where some journalist said, I'm going to go and show this picture of myself to the police. Supposedly I'm a criminal, they're going to capture me. Let's see how long it takes them to capture me, right? 7 minutes it took before police surrounded him in some random location somewhere. And all of that with AI and facial recognition. Manipulation in billboards. You know the Piccadilly lights, right? They were shut off a few years ago, and they've now revamped. They're beautiful, but they're context sensitive. They adapt to weather, etc., all from a nice control panel. And supposedly, you can now also, based on the people in the square, adapt it, right? So we're bringing targeted advertising to physical world, which is fantastic, right? Fake news, fake video generators. Go and say there's a startup in, I think it's called PicsScreen or something like that. Upload a picture, some words, blah, 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 makes a nice fake video for you. Now, today, you can kind of tell, and I might be able to, my mother might not be able to. Tomorrow, you might not be able to tell anymore. And all of this is contributing to more things that are maybe fake on the internet. And of course, we all know that AI has issues, right? We have the issue of bias. Google classifies this into 3. Selection bias. The data used to train the algorithm is biased to begin with. Yes, because here's an idea. We'll get AI to make objective decisions. OK, what should we feed it? Data. Where do we get it from? The world. Is the world biased? Yes. So you're feeding it biased data. No. No, yes, you are. Right? You're feeding historical data, which is biased. Interaction bias. As I interact with the algorithm, the way the user interacts with it, this promotes this bias. Latent bias. The algorithm incorrectly correlates data with gender, race, income, etc. Examples of this, where there has been algorithms to say, OK, which one's the more criminal, which one should get the more punishment? Guess what? In this case, it was the gentleman on the right that had more criminal activities. The computer said the one on the left. Right? Interaction bias. You all know Tay. Yes? Yeah? Oh, this is an awesome AI that got shut down. Two minutes in, it was shouting hates and Nazism and everything. Right? Interaction bias. Amazon secretly scraps an AI recruiting that was showing bias against women. No, really? Could it be that there is a bias against women also in the world? No. Oh, yeah. Right? And then, of course, we've got the naive implementations, which is like, oh, I'm going to detect if you're sarcastic based on emojis and the text you write. Yeah, OK, good luck. But of course, this even dates back to machine learning, right? Has anyone read this book on weapons of math destruction? This is by Cathy O'Neill. That talks about many times. This is essentially data science, and big data and machine learning has made that data science a little bit more easier and more automated. But it's automatic data mining, essentially. And it talks about that there is no accountability for algorithms, that these algorithms are developed in private and released to public, contracted by public organizations with no accountability towards them. Historical data that is being used, it's using it for historical practices. It's not suddenly we just cut everything and said, there you go, it's done, right? Data points considered as zip codes that you would think that they're innocent, but they're not, incorrectly correlating poverty with race and gender, etc. It's wrong. So, and this is essentially contributing to increasing inequality. And we're not even talking about AI in the military. And of course, I don't know much about AI, but when you have some people that essentially do know somewhat about AI, and all of them, whether you agree with some people's perspectives or not, are raising concerns, we should actually be paying attention. So in summary, and I'll try and make this very short. I know I'm running a few minutes over time. I apologize. We're kind of screwed. OK? Thank you very much. No. Now, the bad news is that this is not an episode of Black Mirror. The good news is that actually there isn't much in terms of good news. There really isn't. Like, I'm not going to come and do an inspiring keynote. So what, if anything, can actually be done? Well, as a society, I think there are steps. I think we could take the idea of GDPR, think it through properly before stupidly implementing it, which is what's happened with GDPR. There are initiatives. Tim Berners-Lee has talked about the freedom of the web, trying to join these efforts and trying to promote this idea, trying to raise awareness. Certain regulations that can be put in place for data checks to validate the biasness of that data, to observe transparency of algorithms. This is, again, something that Cathy O'Neill speaks about. Ethics of the use of technology. As companies, what can we do? Well, I mean, some companies have even stopped tracking targeted advertising, and hey, it's not increasing revenues, it's not decreasing revenues as such. There are some governments that are trying to treat internet as a fundamental right. Google is trying to introduce this concept of fact-checking. Now, I don't know if this is going to work or not, but their idea is that every snippet of information will bring you some kind of level of how much this fact has been checked for you to decide whether this can be true or not. Google also claims that they're going to change their algorithms for YouTube. Now, I don't know about you, but if you go to YouTube now, it is the most, like every time you look for something, it takes you a little bit more to the extreme, a little bit more to the more, you know, like, oh, let me see skiboarding. Oh, skiboarding. Oh, top 10 hits of skiboarding. Next one is like, oh, look at this person jumping off a cliff with skateboard and landing correctly. Oh, look at this one dying. And it's like going to the extreme every time. I actually get scared my kid watches YouTube because he ends up in some weird places. The other day I ended up in some weird, crazy conspiracy thing that the first comment was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here either. But that is it, because it's about engaging controversy, conspiracies. And they're hopefully saying that they're moving away from this. What can we do? What can we do as individuals, though? Well, there are a few things, actually. From a consumer perspective, we can stop putting all the blame on technology. We can stop having headlines like saying social media is an existential threat to our idea of democracy. No, if it's not this, tomorrow it'll be something else. We're an existential threat to our democracy because of the way we are acting, because of the way we are sharing information. There are tools that make it easier, sure. We have to be conscious of that. But it's about us at the end of the day. Not everything we see is real. There's a lot of fake stuff on the internet. There is fake reviews, yes, about the restaurant in England, which was a garden shed, which made it to the top restaurant in TripAdvisor, based on fake reviews. So suddenly, fake reviews are okay, but fake news is not? Were we all born and said we will never generate fake news? No, right? Fake comments, fake businesses, it's all there. It's all actually there. Fake politics, it's there. And of course, fake news. But it also means that not everything we disagree with is necessarily fake news. Not everything we disagree with, we'll just say, oh, these are just some bots. Because sometimes it may be that we need to contrast the information we read. Sometimes we need to understand that there are narratives at play. Every media, everything has their own narrative, has their own interests. Everyone does. Beware of one's own confirmation bias. And try proactively of breaking out of bubbles. I read a whole bunch of different articles from different newspapers. Yes, I open up the Daily Mail, I open up the Telegraph, I open up the Independent, I open up the Guardian. I read all of these different things to try and get a little bit of perspective on all things. In fact, there's a paper research that says reducing controversy by connecting opposing views actually helps positively. I think Twitter's picked up on this because it wants me to follow Donald Trump and Alexandria at some point. Now, and what I'm saying here applies to this talk as well. I've got a narrative for this talk. I want to show you some of the problems that there are in society right now. I've shown and I've aligned every article with what I want to say because I wanted to make it coherent and make a flow. I've provided you with all the links. If you contrast that, I've done my best to contrast it and look for multiple sources. If I'm incorrect, please tell me about it, right? This applies to this talk as well. As producers, evaluate before handing over data. Think about all of the consequences. Analyze before blindly sharing. Think about the impact that this will have. If you don't have time to investigate or contrast something, don't share it. No one will care. It's fine. Evaluate the consequences of retweeting. Or summarized, think first. In fact, Wired had an article a year ago talking about in the wake of an attack, if you're somewhere else in the world, stop retweeting because that might also incite more panic and more fear and exactly play into the hands of those inciting terror. Right? These are things that we need to think about. And you know what? Be a tad more cynical. It's okay. There was a recent meme about, oh, take a picture of you 10 years ago and 10 years now. Someone said, actually, this might be they're trying to get aging AI better. Yeah, it's okay to think about that. Just don't blindly do everything that people tell you to do. And then last of all, as technologists, educate the less tech-savvy. Tell your friends, tell your families about the dangers of technology. As technologies that we're creating things move towards a more sustainable business model, right? Where we don't have to sell people's data. Where we don't get articles by this lady nicely put that, you know, I want to thank the VCs because they've been subsidizing all of the services I get. Yes, but those VCs at some point are going to want to cash out. And what do they have? Pretty much only data. A nice example of this was a small community where they had created a smaller community, sustainable community with honest ads just for a group of people in a neighborhood and created a platform, otherwise known as, if you remember the old days, listservs and BBSs, for specific people to specific communities. Maybe the idea is that we don't need 6 billion of the people connected, because that's where the factor of anonymous me to you comes in. I don't care about your life. I'm not saying here. I don't care about the life of someone over there. So for me, I don't care about the consequences that it may have or I may have by criticizing them or ranting or whatever. Maybe we don't need the entire world connected in a single platform called Facebook. Create interfaces that favor privacy first. Move away from dark UI patterns. Start to think about protecting privacy. This is an awesome thing that is like a little fungi that sits on your assistant that filters out anything until you activate that assistant. And it all stays on the Raspberry Pi. Nothing goes to the cloud. You see, security, of course, never should be an afterthought because things do get hacked. And most importantly, account and work for diversity. Diversity in hiring, diversity in teams, diversity in everything. We are technologists creating technology for a diverse world where people have different social incomes, they have different races, they have different genders, they have different orientations, they have different things. We need to take this into account. It often feels like the software that we're creating is catered to a single 1% of the world. And we can't do that by just saying, oh yeah, we're thinking about diversity. Only people that can think about diversity is when you have a diverse group of people. Teach, discuss, and promote ethics. Think about things that are wrong. And it's not like I want to, pick on Facebook, but it's not like they make it really hard to pick on them. But it's like every other day, Facebook is in the news for something that it's doing, like duping kids into spending money, paying teenagers to install, this is live, fresh from this morning, paying teenagers to install applications to spy. Like, this is not the way that we want a connected society. The famous from Jurassic Park, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. We actually should stop and think once in a while. Because at the end of the day, as technologists, beyond producers, consumers, companies, all of this, we've got the greatest responsibility of all. Because we have a hand in essentially everything. So to summarize, whatever this machine may be, we're a cog in it. Now, the question is whether we can alter that cog, whether we can alter it so that the machine moves in a better direction. And I believe and I hope that we can. Thank you.